I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily Week in Review. Parts of Alberta are experiencing cooler temperatures and even light rain as the province remains under a state of emergency while dozens of wildfires continue raging. The government is warning, however, that a return to hot and dry conditions is expected and that fires can reignite even after several days of light rain. More than 29,000 people have been ordered to leave their homes in recent days. There were roughly 90 active wildfires burning as of Monday evening, with 25 listed as out of control. The provincial government has announced one-time payments worth $1,250 per adult and $500 per dependent child. The payments will be available as early as today for those forced to spend at least 7 straight days away from home. Well, joining us now to give us the latest updates on the developing wildfire situation in Alberta is Melissa Story, Provincial Information Officer with Alberta Wildfire. Ms. Story, welcome to Forum Daily.
Well, thank you.
So what are some of the latest updates you can give us regarding current efforts to control these wildfires?
We currently have 84 wildfires burning in the province. 25 of them remain out of control. We are doing everything we can at this point to try and action these wildfires. We have seen some reprieve with the weather here over the last couple of days, which has allowed us to take the opportunity to get in with some heavy equipment to assess better on the ground what's happening, to be able to fly over those wildfires, to assess the damage that's there, to recalculate all of our perimeters around wildfires to know exactly how big they are and what kind of damage they've made so far. So we've been busy with the reprieve in the weather. We are nervous for the weekend. Obviously, we're going to see an upturn in the weather again. So we are getting ready and getting prepared to fight wildfires when they come.
And considering over 29,000 people have been ordered to evacuate, was the severity of this wildfire season expected by officials, even considering that this is so early on in the season?
We prepare as we typically do every year. Wildfire season starts in Alberta on March 1st. We are ready to go. We hire on our wildland firefighters throughout the winter. They go through training. We're typically prepared for May, as that's when we start to see our busy season. This has been unseasonable conditions for us in Alberta. We've had a lot of heavy winds, elevated temperatures. We haven't seen very much for precipitation, so we're lacking the rain. This is a welcome change for us, the rain that we have seen here. So it's great and it's helping out. But we do prepare as we do every year for wildfire season. We hire on over 400 wildland firefighters. We take on over 300 support staff. We have access to resource sharing agreements across the country. When we are in situations like this, we can rely on our partners in Canada to come and help us.
All right, and what do we know so far about the causes behind these wildfires?
Springtime is tough for us. We don't see much for lightning here in Alberta, so it is pretty safe to say that most of our wildfires are human caused. Every wildfire out there on the books is getting investigated. We make sure that we find a pinpointed cause for them so that we can help with our prevention efforts moving forward.
All right, Ms. Story, so gauging what you've seen so far, what are your predictions for the rest of the wildfire season, as you say, that runs from March 1st to October 31st?
Well, we're not seeing any rain for the immediate future, so we will definitely be in this wildfire situation for a while as far as we're concerned here in Alberta. We've put on fire bans and OHV restrictions across the province to help limit any of the human-caused wildfires that may be started on the landscape. As far as what the rest of the season may bring, only time will tell. We prepare and we're ready for it. We do have some campaign fires that are on the landscape right now, so we don't anticipate those going anywhere for the time being.
And you mentioned other provinces are sending firefighters to assist. Are more personnel needed right now in this battle?
Yeah, we currently have a request in with our Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center for another 1,000 resources to come and help out with the firefighting efforts. We've had resources arrive from British Columbia, the Yukon, Ontario, Quebec. They're coming from all over Canada to help us, and we are so appreciative of it.
All right, Ms. Story, just about a minute left here, but we're hearing criticism from former members of an elite wildfire fighting team, the RAP Attack Team. Now, they're talking about the cutting of the program in 2019 due to funding cuts. So on that note, how important is investment in firefighting personnel and tools right now and in the future amid concerns around climate change?
We're always looking for the latest and greatest. Wildfire seasons are starting earlier across Canada, so we hire on our firefighters. The rappel team was great and they were very effective at what they did. We continue to attack wildfires with helicopter. We have the ability to get into places across the province that we have access to everywhere that we need to be. So, I mean, I feel like we're prepared as far as the complement that we have here.
All right, Ms. Story, thank you again for your time today on Forum Daily.
Thank you.
When we return, we're going to take a deeper look at a recent study that warns about the post-pandemic increase in the use of some cleaning products, which may be doing more harm than good. Our interview with Dr. Abhishek Raut, medical director at Apple Tree Medical Group, is coming up next, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. There is one mark the COVID-19 pandemic has left on most Canadians. It's a heightened sense of awareness around viruses and bacteria. But a recent study has warnings around the increased use of certain cleaning products that may be doing more harm than good. Researchers point to cleaning products that contain quaternary ammonium compounds, or QACs. Now, these products have been connected to asthma, dermatitis, and even inflammation. QACs can be found in disinfectant wipes and are commonly used in other antimicrobial products that were in high use during the pandemic. Now, according to the study published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology, such products are lacking proper regulation and research. Well, joining us now to talk more on the safety considerations around certain cleaning products in our weekly medical segment is Dr. Abhishek Raut, medical director at Apple Tree Medical Group. Dr. Raut, welcome back.
Good evening. Great to be here.
So let's start with unpacking QACs and how they affect the human body.
Right. So now QACs are a very common class of chemicals, and we see them in antimicrobials, preservatives, even softening agents, and of course, disinfecting products, which we saw a massive surge with during the pandemic. We are exposed to these chemicals by inhaling them or touching the disinfected surfaces, or even eating them if food is around when the area is being disinfected. Now, what we do see is these QACs can cause allergic and skin rashes, even with very limited exposure. If you have eye contact, you can cause burning of the eyes, even eye injury and blindness if it's severe contact. And many QACs can actually trigger asthma symptoms as well. So we find people with difficulty breathing or even chronic cough in a QAC full environment.
Some concerning symptoms there, Dr. Raut. Now, we spoke a little bit about short-term exposure, but what are some of the long-term impacts of exposure to QACs?
Right. So now we've seen QACs even in our wastewater, and this is relevant because what we've seen is that in the wastewater, there actually can be toxic to certain kinds of fish. So it really begs the question about long-term human safety as well. And we've already seen an uptake of these respiratory infections or symptoms that are coming in. We're seeing doctors, nurses, housekeeping and cleaning professionals. They're developing more respiratory infections, more COPD disease, and more asthma from this chronic exposure to QACs. But we're also starting to see is some general links to other issues like infertility or even birth defects from potential parents being exposed to QACs. So that's very concerning.
Very concerning connections there, Dr. Raut. Now, considering the impact on adults, just how dangerous could such cleaning products be around children, especially considering disinfectant could be used on children's school desks, especially throughout the pandemic?
Right, exactly right. If you think about a child's classroom, how many items are disinfected with, let's say, cleaning wipes? Just almost everything. A child is, of course, more likely to put things in their mouth as well after touching it. So the concern of QACs being more harmful to children is present because, one, they're getting a larger dose of it from their environment versus an adult, and two, they're much smaller than adults. So when they're getting that dose, it's at highly more effective concentration of QACs in their body than what we would as adults.
All right, Dr. Raut, a two-pronged question here, but what kind of common cleaning products have QACs been connected to, and how can Canadians identify products with QACs in them?
Right. So I think we see some of the statistics that roughly half of the cleaning products that were spiked during the pandemic definitely had QACs in them as well. And what we're seeing in this as well is that it's very difficult to ascertain what products have QACs. In general, what we should be looking for is chemicals like ammonium chloride or benzalkonium chloride. So anything with that ammonium in there is likely to be a QAC, and you want to stay away from them.
All right, Dr. Raut. So why are such compounds in cleaning products in the first place? Is there no regulatory body that maybe oversees the production of such products?
Honestly, not really. We use QACs in hundreds of industries and in our environment, and most QACs really haven't undergone any rigorous regulatory assessment. So for clinical doctors and public health physicians, this is frustrating to say the least.
Frustrating indeed. Just about a minute left, Dr. Raut. But from the looks of it, QACs can be found nearly everywhere, at home, at the office, hospitals, even in the environment. So how can Canadians stay safe amid all this, especially those exposed to it regularly, as you said, nurses, housekeepers, janitors, etc.?
Right. I think the first thing here is education on this topic. If you're going to go into a classroom or an office, or you're being exposed to chemicals and you're noticing that sensitivity, maybe a rash, maybe more allergic symptoms as well, you should definitely think about QACs. You should let your team lead know that you're having these reactions, because you do have rights as a person working there, and certainly advocate for a change in that environment to minimize that QACs. You'll improve your health by advocating, and also those around you.
All right, Dr. Rao, thank you again for another informative interview.
Thanks so much for having me.
Coming up, we're going to take a look at National Nurses Week in Canada and its theme, Our Nurses, Our Future. We're going to be discussing the challenges nurses face across the country and what policymakers and governments can do to address these concerns. Our interview with Mr. Sylvain Brosseau from the Canadian Nurses Association up next. It is National Nursing Week in Canada, and this year's theme is Our Nurses, Our Future. It highlights the many roles that nurses play for patients and in the community. This year, nursing organizations across the country have launched the Hey Nurse campaign on social media, the hashtag Hey Nurse campaign, to let the public express their appreciation for nurses. National Nursing Week runs from May 8th to the 14th this year, and it aims to increase awareness for the public, policymakers, and governments of the contributions that nurses make to the lives of Canadians. It runs the same week as Florence Nightingale's birthday on May 12th. Well, with us to discuss National Nursing Week in Canada is Mr. Sylvain Brosseau, President of the Canadian Nurses Association Board of Directors. Mr. Brosseau, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Now, this year's theme is Our Nurses, Our Future. So can you tell us a little bit more about the meaning behind this theme and the message that it wants to send to Canadians?
But as you told earlier, that the campaign is aimed at the public and gives them a chance to tell a nurse or a group of nurses how much they are appreciated for their work. And we know that the population, I would say, like or love nurses. And it's the way to say to nurses, thank you so much for what you do each day.
And in terms of talking about the future of nurses, what does the future for Canadian nurses look like amid constraints in the healthcare sector, including staffing shortages, mental health concerns, burnout, and so much more?
But as I said earlier to another media, we never seen this level of widespread distress before, as we say, and the situation will get worse if we don't immediately face it and put solution to resolve it. And we also know that since so many, I would say since 3 years, many nurses have faced 24-hour shift and have not been able to take a day off or a break, or have had their vacation being suspended in some places. And we also see in the same time nurses who are decided to retire earlier, switching, or some of them switching to part-time employment, or totally leaving their job or the profession altogether and going to other area. And we know that it's a bigger threat to our healthcare system. We know that the bigger threat of our healthcare system is the health human resource crisis, as the nursing workforce crisis. And more recently, in March 2022, the House of Commons Committee on Health released its report on addressing Canada's health workforce crisis, which recognized that we are facing a serious nursing shortage across the country.
Now, in recent news yesterday, we heard from the Ontario Health Coalition on the passage of Bill 60, otherwise known as the Your Health Act. Now, this would allow more private clinics in Ontario to conduct more OHIP-covered surgeries. So we're hearing from advocates threatening legal action around this bill. The OHA has launched a referendum on Bill 60. Where does the Canadian Nurses Association stand when it comes to this and the privatization of healthcare?
But first of all, we know there is already private services across Canada, such as surgery, lab, diagnosis, imaging, dental care, long-term care, and home care, and etc. CNA support a universal health system that provides equitable coverage for all Canadians. And we think that the creation of a parallel system will pull workers from an already challenging situation with a global shortage. If you pull workers from the public healthcare system to the private sector, you will increase the shortage. And taxpayers' money should never be used to fund private care. That's our view. And we think that it is in best interest of patients, taxpayers, and the health system to have nurses fully employed inside the healthcare system, inside the organization.
And in terms of the shortage, earlier this year, we saw provinces attempting to poach nurses from other provinces and even other countries in order to address these shortages. And you highlighted working conditions for nurses as one of the main reasons that many are leaving their jobs. So just about a minute left, but can you tell us a little bit more about this and what needs to be done to improve the retention of nurses?
There is so much to be done, and this is something that I will tell you it's not new. We must, first of all, reimagine our healthcare system, the way it operates. First of all, we must also, as we all said, initiate a safe staffing ratio based on the intensity of nursing care of the person, depending on the health issue, adding more personal support worker to support nurses, promote and ensure a healthy work environment where we're going to find it's going to be free of violence and racism. Nurses want to work in a healthy working place and not a place that it's toxic. We must also, that we already said, provide clinical support to the novice nurse and our expert nurses. Having clinicians, nurse specialists to support nurses in all area of the healthcare system. Safer working condition and adequate mental health care program to support them who are already in burnout, who are thinking that they will be in burnout if they continue.
A recent study is sounding the alarm on Canada's electronic waste, which it says has more than tripled over the last 2 decades. A team of researchers at the University of Waterloo conducted a comprehensive estimate of e-waste in Canada going back as far as 1971. This was to better understand the life cycle of electronic items from point of sale to disposal. The study finds that Canadians produced nearly 1 million tons of e-waste in 2020 alone, and that number is expected to reach 1.2 million tons annually by 2030. The researchers are now urging better e-waste management to reduce environmental harm and bring economic rewards. Well, joining us now to discuss these findings is Dr. Komal Habib, lead researcher of the study. She's also an assistant professor at the School of Environment, Enterprise and Development, or SEED, at the University of Waterloo. Dr. Habib, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So let's start by discussing what exactly constitutes as e-waste.
So e-waste is any product that is powered by electricity or the batteries. For example, the phones in our hands, computers, tablets, gadgets, anything we use in our daily life, including the large household appliances, for example, the refrigerators, washing machines, ovens, you name a thing in your house and your offices, that's part of the electronic items category, as well as then end up as electronic waste.
And according to this research, e-waste has more than tripled in the last 20 years, and the numbers continue to rise. What were found to be the key causes of this?
So there are a number of reasons for that increasing trend. Number one, obviously, we can't ignore the fact that we are more people compared to 20 years ago. So population also has its role to play. Second thing is the consumer behavior. And that is also very important to consider because now we tend to buy more products more often. We tend to replace our older products very soon or every year or 2 years to replace with the most latest technology. And also the products have shorter lifetimes now. So I think all these reasons coupled together lead to this problem.
And understandably so. Now, this report mentions that e-recycling is not keeping up with electronics development. So can you unpack this for our viewers and how e-recycling can be improved?
So this particular study did not focus on the recycling infrastructure or the failures of the system, but on the first comprehensive estimate of electronic waste in Canada. But what I can say for now is that the speed or the pace at which our electronic items have technologically developed over time. For example, the phone in my hand or you have is much more complex than it used to be a few years back. But the recycling infrastructure, the recycling technology has not kept up with this pace. So for most of the recycling industry, the technology we talk about is at least a decade or two old. So I think that there is this gap which needs to be reduced.
And you highlighted something interesting previously that properly managed e-recycling could create a secondary supply chain of critical minerals. So can you tell us a little bit more about the kinds of critical minerals that can be found in e-waste?
So electronic waste stream is really interesting stream. And actually, I don't want to call it a waste stream. I want to call it a resource stream because it's full of precious and critical minerals. So critical minerals, when we say there are a number of those found in electronic items and then electronic waste. For example, there is nickel, cobalt, there is lithium, there are rare earth elements. So a number of critical minerals and metals are found in electronic waste, which, if efficiently recovered, could then reduce the burden on primary supply from the mining.
All right, but Dr. Habib, just about a minute left here, but what would an ideal system of e-recycling and a secondary supply chain of critical minerals look like?
So I wouldn't directly jump to recycling. No, I think we have to, being consumer, we really need to focus on how we can increase the lifespan of a product as long as possible, as long as it's functional. Then it comes to the policymaking institutes. I think they could provide more incentives to the recycling industry, who could then use those incentives to not only upgrade their infrastructures, but also to efficiently manage, repair, refurbish, recycle different resources found in this very precious and complex waste stream.
All right, Dr. Habib, truly appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us on Forum Daily.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at important conversations from this past week. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter for updates. You can also watch all of our news and commentary programming on the News Forum YouTube channel. This was Forum Daily Week in Review, and we'll see you again next time. Have a great weekend, Canada. Take care.